Hi, and welcome to this week's Mortgage Broker broadcast. My guest this week is Usman Khalid, and Usman is coming onto the podcast and a guest on the podcast because he's fairly new into the industry, but come from a very different background. He's a pharmacist by trade. He's been a pharmacist for a number of years, and he knew long term he wanted to be a business owner. He decided less than 12 months ago that being a business owner in the pharmacist world wasn't for him. And for whatever reason, he then, which he will explain on the podcast, got into mortgages, went straight into it as a business owner. And yeah, I wanted to get onto the podcast because he's very structured, he's a very routine individual. He's juggling being a pharmacist. He's recently given up an accountancy business as well. So he'd been, at one point, he was pharmacist, accountant, been a mortgage broker and running his own mortgage broker business. And also as well, he's posting on social media 5 days a week. So I think it's just good to hear his story, how he got into mortgages, why he got into mortgages, the challenges he's faced, and how he structures his week and how he gets routine to make sure that his clients are serviced and he's been consistent on social media. So before we get into the podcast with Usman, here's Lee Rowland with this week's Mortgage Broker Bulletin.
Hello and welcome to the third edition of the Mortgage Broker Bulletin. Lee Rowland here. Craig and I thought it'd be a nice contrast for him to be inside and I'd be outside. However, I've definitely drawn the short straw because I'm absolutely freezing. Now, on to the mortgage news. TSB have just announced that they'll lend up to age 75 on residential applications with proof of private pension contributions, with no need for proof of full retirement income. Absolutely great news. Skipton have been making headlines again with one of their retention products at 3.35%, 60% loan to value. Just be a bit careful as it's got a 5% completion fee. Is there actually a rates war going on? Well, with several lenders below 5%, it probably seems that there is. Mostly on low loan-to-value products, but we can also see some high loan-to-value products also reducing slightly, which is great news across the market. Service levels seem to be pretty good at the minute. Lenders are picking up the phone, cases are being processed quickly, which is all great news for us as brokers and for our clients. Overall, there's a bit of an air of positivity around. We got some stability, which is great. Onwards, upwards, forwards, stay positive, and I'll speak with you next week.
Thanks, Lee, for this week's Mortgage Broker Bulletin. Yeah, let's just get Usman onto the podcast. So welcome onto the podcast. Usman, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. And thanks for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I don't know if it was sort of a mutual thing that you wanted to do, but I know I've been pushing you a little while to get you onto the podcast. So, and I can see from that smile, I'm guessing it was more of a little bit more of me pushing, shall we say. But I appreciate you trusting me and coming onto the podcast. Is this the first podcast you've been on, or?
It's my first ever podcast I'm coming on. So obviously it's something that I had to do at some point. So it was good to kind of get it out of the way and just see how it goes.
Get out of the way.
We'll see how it goes. That's one way of putting it, yeah. Get the experience under the belt, shall I say.
All about taking you out of your comfort zone, husband, but like we're in the perfect hands, and like, yeah, don't worry, there's nothing hopefully your first one will be the first of many and won't be too painful, and and thanks for trusting me in terms of you've joined no agenda, we're just going to have a chat, so you're very much trusting me as well, so hopefully I won't betray that trust and put you too much on the spot.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to put us on the spot because I haven't got a clue what we're going to talk about, but let's just see how it goes, and I'm sure hopefully it gives some value to the listeners as well.
Exactly. And that's like, obviously we'll do introductions in a second. But like I say, I really appreciate you coming to the podcast and just explaining the reason why I wanted, and I've been sort of pushing you a little bit persistent to come onto the podcast, was just to talk about your journey. Your background is very different to a lot of mortgage brokers. And I think it's sort of good to just have a conversation about that and open a lot of mortgage brokers' eyes, or people that maybe are not from the industry thinking about becoming self-employed mortgage brokers, but then also as well at the same time just how you found the transition from what you did before, which is very different, to then going straight in. So I would say you've sort of jumped. Normally the transition is into the industry, possibly employed, then finding your feet for a couple of years, then maybe going self-employed with a firm, and then ultimately maybe then having your own firm, whereas you've just gone leapfrog the whole however long that is and just gone, right, you know what, let's just go on with that. And that's why I just wanted to get you onto podcast to talk about that. But literally, I've broken the rule already, because I normally, it's an 80-20 rule. So you speak 80% of the time and I speak 20, but I think we've had with nearly 3 minutes and I've done most of the talking. So let's hand it over to you. So first of all, do you want to just explain who you are and a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Usman. I'm a mortgage and protection advisor based up in Newcastle upon Tyne. I haven't got the thickest of Geordie accents. Not many people are aware, because I am quite monotone. I'm fully aware of that. So my background is I've only joined the industry at the beginning of this year. I started my CMAP in October 2022, finished it by mid-November, and I also did the equity release as well. I thought, while I'm in study mode, I might as well get all the qualifications under my belt. And then I joined a small network, and I've been practicing since February this year. So I'm relatively new to the industry completely. My background is I'm a pharmacist. I have been since 2008, and so coming up with 15 years actually. And my ambition was always to own my own business. So I wanted whether it was a pharmacy or anything else. And for those of you, I don't know, not many people have knowledge of acquiring pharmacies. They're not cheap to start off with, and they're very hard to come by. It's not a case where you can just set one up from scratch. You've got to go through the whole NHS contract, and basically they're limited in what you can get. I was actually very close to purchasing my own, but at that time it didn't feel like the right thing to do for me and my family. Although the people selling it to us were absolutely spot on, and they did everything they could to make things work, and everything was in place for it to go ahead. It was actually a personal decision where I decided that this isn't right for me or my family. And when I got to that point, I did start thinking, well, look, I've always wanted my own business. I've been in the pharmacy game. I think at that point I've been in about 11 years. So it was a case of, what do I want to do and how do I want to go achieve my own business? So I'm still in the pharmacy world. I still work 3 days a week within the pharmacy, so I haven't just gave it up completely. I'm transitioning into the mortgage world. But in between, I did do my tax qualifications, and I set up a small accountancy firm, which I built up from scratch, and I did actually enjoy it. But obviously, I did that for about 3-4 years, and it got to the point where I thought, this isn't quite for me. Just something wasn't quite sitting right. I enjoyed learning, but I didn't actually enjoy doing it. So it got to the point where I had a long discussion with a family member of mine who is an accountant, and we looked at avenues that could be explored in terms of, right, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And to be fair, he always said to me all along, before I even did the accountancy, look at being a mortgage broker, look at being an advisor. So he was the one who actually kind of not opened the door, but pushed me in that direction. So I did a bit of inquiries, looked into CMAP, completed the CMAP, and then next thing you know, I've literally just jumped straight 2 feet in, set up my own business from scratch. And with this one, I'm enjoying. It wasn't just the learning I enjoyed. I'm actually enjoying helping people with their mortgages, helping people with protection. And as time's going on, I'm learning so much on the job. I've got a small network which is quite supportive, and I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing. So I can see myself doing this long term. So at the moment, like as I mentioned, I'm doing this 2 days a week, and I'm working in the pharmacy 3 days a week. But the plan is to build up the business so I can reduce the days from the pharmacy and do this more long term.
So if I'm right there from what you're sort of saying, you at one point when you actually becoming a totally new. So not only are you running a pharmacist, you've got your own accountancy firm, you're totally new into the mortgage industry and running your own business all at the same time.
Yes, and it got so much to the point where I realized, right, I'm going to have to do something here with regards to either the mortgages or the accountancy. I couldn't run the two side by side. I just genuinely didn't have the time. So a friend of mine who is an accountant actually approached me and said, look, I'm happy to take your clients away from you and basically take away the workload and the stress, and we agreed a fee. So the accountancy is actually pretty much it's sold. So for the last 2 months or so, I've been able to focus purely on the mortgages and protection, and that's what I wanted to do. So I do, like I said, I still do the 3 days in the pharmacy. It's not quite as a pharmacy. It's actually one of the busiest in England as well. So it's not as if I get a break from there either. You literally go in, next thing you know, it's time to go home because it's that busy. And then obviously on top of that, I'm juggling the mortgage and protection. But thankfully, with us having 2 full days to focus on it, and also the weekend if I need to, I'm able to do that, and I'm able to dedicate the time towards it.
I think you're doing yourself a bit of disservice there, husband, because a lot of people struggle with just getting into the mortgage industry and purely focusing on that. But you not only, like I say, I know you're not doing the accounts anymore, but at one point you was. And then the also thing behind that as well is that you're prolific on your social media feed as well, because I see you constantly on
Yeah.
my Instagram. So you're not only, so I'm trying to, you're doing yourself a bit of disservice there, because you literally running 3 businesses. One is a totally new industry, and then you're prolific on, and you're making time to, which we'll come on to as well in terms of making the time for your social media. So yeah, I think hats off to you in terms of totally coming to something totally new, being pushed by family friend in terms of doing this, but ultimately focusing on your long-term goal, which was to own your own business, like you
Yeah.
said. So at what point was that when you sort of you obviously you've been in the pharmacy, you've been a pharmacist for 11 years. Was that before that? Was that what you always wanted to do? Is that just literally I wanted to be a pharmacist, and that because the training must be immense, the qualifications immense for being a pharmacist?
With regards to I always wanted to do something in health sciences when I was younger. So
Right.
whether that was medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and it just happened to be that the pharmacy was the one that I ended up following. My sister's a pharmacist, so I probably just followed in her footsteps. And then did my training 4 years at uni, 1 year in practice, did the exam, passed that. And then obviously I've just basically worked within pharmacy and gone from strength to strength, worked my way up various different community. I've always worked in a community, there's different sectors. And I've worked my way up to a point where I'm a superintendent of an independent pharmacy, which I still am. And as I mentioned, it's a very big, we are one of the busiest pharmacies in England, so in terms of dispensing volume. So it's always, it's a very, it's a very busy environment to be in on a regular basis. That was actually the pharmacy I had the option of purchasing, and everything was in place or in line in order to do that. But at that point, before we actually started the legal work, all the finances are in place, but before we started the legal work, I kind of had to think, is this what I really want to do? Because at that point, my eldest child was 3 and my wife was pregnant with our second child.
Right.
And I remember looking at my eldest child, and I literally missed out on a lot of his life purely because I was constantly working. And even when I wasn't working, I was constantly doing stuff for the pharmacy because I knew I was going to buy it. So I knew it was going to be mine. So I was investing a lot of time into it. And I kind of had to make a decision that, look, if I do this for the next 15, 20 years, I'm going to miss out a lot on both kids. So I had a discussion with my wife, and she was dead supportive. She said, look, whatever you want to do, we'll go down that road. And decided actually in the end, my family life is a bit more important to me than what that was. But I still had ambitions of owning my own business. So hence why I started looking at other avenues.
So you thought, I tell you what, I'm going to take myself out of my comfort zone. I know I've been trained as a pharmacist. I know that you could take the easy route of going, yeah, I know it's not going to be give me the work-life balance that I crave, but at the same time, it's safe because you know what you're doing in that. You know the business that you're working in, and you've been trained in that, and your career's progressed in that industry. But you're just going to strip all that out and go, do you know what? I'm just going to go 2-footed into something totally different
Yeah.
that will hopefully give you the work-life balance that you're craving for, to spend time with your family, like, as you sort of said. But so you've thrown spending time with your family as another priority in there. So you've already got all these juggling all these balls in the air at the same time. So I think you must be quite a structured individual, Usman, is to be managing all this at the same time.
I'm very routine focused. I am a little bit OCD about that, so I like my routine. I like things to be running to schedule. My phone calendar's got everything that I need to do that day, and I'll always tick them off to say, right, have I done this? Have I done this? The good thing about joining this industry and is that it allows quite a lot of flexibility. So before working in the pharmacy, it's one of those you're literally there all day. I can't just leave and say, right, I'm going to pick my kids up from school, because once I leave, patients aren't getting the medications. You can't dispense drugs. There's quite a lot of red tape around that. So with this industry, I can plan my day. Like this morning alone, I've been able to drop off my kids at school. Later on, I'll be going and pick them up. And then if there's any after school clubs, which my eldest is heavily involved in quite a few, I can take them. So that was another reason as well for the work-life balance, that I can actually do things that I want to do around my kids as well.
Fair enough. Like you've got to be, the structure must be. I'm trying to think what your diary looks like in terms of it must be very routine, like routine. But
Yeah.
people do like routine. I have a routine from, and people do enjoy the routine and the structure from that point of view. And some people, how do you feel when your routine's thrown out? How do you deal with that? And how do you feel about that? And then how do you deal with that if your routine get thrown out?
There will be days when the odd thing does get thrown out, and that's something I can handle. But it's when things are starting to build up, then I kind of have to think, right, I need to do something. That's what happened with the accountancy. I always offered my clients a prompt service. So I know a lot of accountants, I'm not saying they're lazy or anything, but you normally have, let's say, you've got 9 months to do a set of corporation tax returns. A lot of accountants will wait 5-6 months down the line and then do it. Whereas as soon as my client's year end was done, I'd have them done within 2 months. So therefore, I know the work's done. Off you go. So when I was juggling the two businesses, obviously I'm trying to give as much time into this business to promote it and get it up and running, because it's from scratch. I've got no clients. I noticed that my accountancy business was suffering. So obviously the routine I had with that wasn't getting followed through, because I was spending and devoting too much time to this. So that did become a little bit stressful, because in the sense I was trying to think, look, this work is piling up. Thankfully, it was all still within the legal compliance deadlines. There was no issues there, but it just wasn't me. It's not the way I work. So it gets to the point where I think if things aren't working, or if I'm not happy with the way things are working, I've got to do something about it. And then in that case, I've kind of got rid of it, which it provided me with an income. So I've kind of had to throw away an income stream in the plunge that this one will eventually replace it. So it's a hit I've had to take, but it's a hit I've taken to make things better in the long term. Or that is the plan anyway.
That's the plan. But you've been a structured, persistent, and well-organized individual. I'm sure you'll get there with that, Usman, without a doubt. So you're going through in your head in terms of, right, I know that I want to have my own business. Pharmacist is not something I'm going to have from my own business point of view. So you've had to accept that in your own mind, that that's not something that you maybe have been striving for in the past, but then then you're not going to achieve that now. And then you throw yourself wholeheartedly into mortgage broking. What was going through your head, like at the time, like CMAP, new business, whole new industry? What was going through your head at that time?
Gonna be brutally, I actually enjoyed CMAP.
Wow.
I know.
People that said that.
The only person who said that. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, you have to bear in mind, when I was doing my CMAP, I was working in the pharmacy. I had the accountancy practice. Yeah, I still managed to finish it with the whole course in 6 weeks and pass all the exams first time. So that kind of shows you how much I did actually enjoy it once I threw myself into it, whatever time I had.
So that's what you did. You thought, it's not going to be a 6 month, 12 month kind of thing with the game. I see now it's going to be targeted, deadline, structured to get that done.
Kind of, because obviously when I did a bit of research, they did say it can take 6 months, 12 months. It depends on what you do. So when I first got the modules, I wasn't sure how long it was going to take me. But CMAP 1, there was quite a lot of, there was a bit of tax in there. So I kind of had the knowledge with that anyway.
Rubbing your hands then, you were going,
yes, I was like, oh, well, I know this. So that made it a lot easier. And I was actually, I think I completed CMAP 1 within about 2 to 3 weeks. And I thought, well,
Right.
actually, this is going to take me 6 months if I just carry on with this at this rate. And obviously, 2 is pretty much applicable to what we're going to do. And I've had mortgages personally, so from the client side, I know a little bit about the mortgages. So it was interesting learning from the advisor side. So I found 2 and 3, and in fact, I even had a week's holiday in there as well. So you're probably talking about 5 solid weeks of just basically learning it. And then I thought, while I'm doing it, while I'm in study mode, I might as well get equity release out of the way as well and just get the qualification. So I did that, and that took another 2 weeks as well. So it wasn't, all in all, I think I started October, finished it by the end of November. I started speaking to quite a lot of networks by the end of November because I knew, obviously, at that point, CMAP was done. I was just doing the equity release. I went with a small network in the end rather than one of your large mainstream ones. It was just purely because I was a new. I felt that they would give me more support, or like more personalized support, shall I say. Nothing against the larger networks. To be fair, some of them I spoke to seemed spot on. But this felt like the right fit for me at the time. And then they put me through in terms of getting the FCA registration. In fairness, we didn't expect that to come back for 16 weeks, is what they said. They said the current wait time with the FCA is 16 weeks. So that was December. I wasn't expecting to start this till March at the very earliest. Then the next thing I know, I think it was mid-January, they came back and said, oh, we're a bit surprised, but we've got your FCA registration through like as quickly as that. And that, bearing in mind, things have been closed for Christmas and New Year as well. So then next thing I know, I was like, oh, all right, okay, let's get. I had done a bit of like research myself as to how I want to market things, what I want to do. But yeah, so it was a case of, right, off we go, and then basically did all the training with them. And then by February, I was up and running, and just kind of slowly starting to engage and trying to get clients and what have you.
So so not only going through the decision of right CMAP, and then I love the fact that you did it within such a short space of time, because when I did my CMAP, I did it in 3 weeks because it's one of those, once you've decided to do something, and I love the fact that you've done the same, and quite a few brokers that I speak to have done the same as that. It's like, well, I know I'm going to do it now. Let's just crack on and do it. And that attitude and that behavior shows up how you're going to be in the industry and how you're going to build your business. Is the same thing. If it takes you 6 to 12 months to do your CMAP, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But experience has taught me that if you do go through it quicker and you just throw yourself into it, 2-footed, eat, sleep. I know when I did it, I was eat, sleep, breathing, CMAP day in, day out. My family went by the wayside, and I just thought, I just want to get my head down and done this. So you've sort of proved that you've done that from your own point of view. It just then is testament to then so you've got your CMAP in your hand, and then you're thinking, right, I need to find was that the next step, then finding the network? You then found the network that you wanted to do, where you wanted to be, the one that you wanted to work with. And then so you get to February. So what was going through your head at that time? So I've got the qualification now. I've got the home. I've got my home. I've got the firms now there, and the networks. Yeah. I've got the FCA registration, and the big wide world of mortgage brokers there. What's going through your head at that time?
It was trying to work out how to get leads, which I think is the golden ticket for everybody. How do you get leads? And especially coming in the industry, not having any connections. Basically, you're starting off from scratch. So initially marketed myself to friends and family, did a few social media posts, and then as time's gone on, I've followed basically people within the mortgage industry. So obviously yourself, Dan Reddish, Ash Boland, Chris Target. There's quite a few, but I've also follow a few from the protection side as well. Carla Edwards, Nicola Huxley, Matt Chapman. There's a few there. And the more I'm listening to their content and the more that I'm following them, I've had a few conversations with a couple of them as well. I'm learning a hell of a lot more. And by that, it's actually enabled us to tweak things as I've gone along. In all honesty, when I first did my CMAP, I was a little bit naive in terms of what route to go through next. I know you've mentioned some people go in employment, some people work, say, with an agency, self-employed, and then go in the those options never came at my head because I probably didn't realize they were fully there, in all honesty.
Right.
So it was kind of a case of, right, did I research it fully? But at the same time, now that I know that I wouldn't change it, I'm quite happy with the route I've gone down. That's probably the route I wanted to go down as well. I feel confident enough. I'm still learning, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure everybody is every day. But I'm quite confident enough in my own ability to be able to do what I'm doing. That's only 6 months in, but as time goes on, I know that I'll just get more and more. It'll increase as time goes on. So yeah, so when I first started in February, it was just a case of just getting the word out there, just trying to get leads. And I did try and entice clients with being a fee-free broker, but I sharp realized after about 2-3 months, this isn't the way forward for myself. My network actually tried to guide me to say, look, charge something, even if it's a small fee, because they don't take any of my brokerage fees. I know some networks do. They were like, look, even if you just charge £100, just charge something. And I was like, no, I'm going to go fee free. And then I think about 2-3 months down the line, I was like, yeah, okay, I totally see where they're coming from. So I started charging fees, and to be fair, it's worked well for us. So
Good.
um,
Good. And that shows you're adaptable in terms of, obviously, you've got your business model to start off with,
yeah,
and I'm working that in progress in terms of I'm going to be fee free. And I think half of the mortgage broker, I think the latest stat that came out was that half of the mortgage broker population don't charge a broker fee. People know my stance on fees, and I agree with you. If you're providing a good service, handhold with the client, then you should be charging a fee. But I know that's not for that everybody's standpoint on that. But I think going back to what you were sort of saying there, which I think is testament to the industry as a whole, and this wasn't the case. There's two things I wanted to pick up on. One was that obviously you've got some like help and support within the industry from people that are in the industry, which I know is quite unique. People find this quite unique with the mortgage broker industry, that there's a lot of help and support as a self-employed broker to get you up and running and get you the solid foundations there. So I know people find that quite unique from that point of view with regards to the help and support of what people and the help that people provide, whether that's, like you said, the protection avenue or the mortgage or from your network and things like that. So that's sort of good from that point of view. But I think one thing, because you didn't know the other options and avenues and you just got straight, there were no other, what I love about that is there was no other distractions of should I go employed? Well, you couldn't keep your pharmacist going
yeah,
if you went employed down that route. Could I go self-employed? Well, it's finding a firm then that will allow you to do part-time
yeah,
broking, which I know a lot of firms don't allow that, and a lot of some networks don't allow that either. So you didn't get bothered by the distractions of, well, this is one option. No, it's not. This is one option. It was literally just, I'm having my own firm, and this is how it's going to pan out, which was great. It saved you a lot of time and worry about whether you're doing the right thing or not.
yeah. I mean, it's allowed me just to focus on one goal now. I can work on building up my own business, and I know that all the hard work that I'm putting in is for me, and it is for my own business as well. So I think in that sense, it's been what I wanted it to be. Obviously, I have got an end goal in mind as to where I want to take it, and there's going to be tweaks along the way to get to that stage. So I set myself some long-term targets, but then I set myself some short-term targets to get to that stage. Um, as as time's going on, I'm learning things, whether it's to do with marketing, whether it's to do with mortgage products, insurance products, and I'm just tweaking the way that I practice as I go along in those three criterias, along with the network as well. I speak to them quite regularly as well. I say, look, this is what I'm looking to do, and they'll either guide me on how the best to do it, or they'll advise me if there's any pitfalls with regards to what I'm looking to do as well. So I think as time goes on, it's just about evolving and making sure that you are making yourself relevant and getting out there. That's basically what I'm doing, just to try and build up the business as best as I can.
Good. And I think when I look at your, like I say, you come up on my Insta feed, you come up on my LinkedIn feed. When I look at your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn feed, it's very much niche in your other industry, shall we say, which
Yeah.
is a natural thing. To was that always part of the plan, or was that just something that you've taken from feedback from others, or how did that come about?
That came about through Dan Reddish, to be honest with you. So the network that I'm a part of, they've done some work with Dan with his New Age Advisor group in the past. So they put me in touch with Dan. So I had a chat with him, and basically he gave me the idea that, look, I think your niche should be pharmacists. You understand the industry, you understand the pain points, you know what they're going through, you know what it takes for them to get a mortgage. So that would make total sense. So with regards to the marketing avenues, social media, I've got LinkedIn, I've got Instagram, I've got TikTok. For my LinkedIn, I make my content all niche towards that industry, the pharmacist industry. So, and I've gone from 0 connections because I set it up from scratch to I'm just about 2,000 connections now. So in about 5-6 months, I've built up 2,000 connections, of which I would say 90% are pharmacists. So they're all my target market that I want to do. I post daily from Monday to Friday. And I'm starting to get messages from clients or potential clients, shall I say, to say that, look, my mortgage is coming due for renewal soon, or I'm looking to purchase a house in the near future. Can you help us? And I would actually say in the last 2-3 weeks, I've noticed it more than anything else. So it's starting to snowball and gain traction with that. So that has worked really well. So that's something I will continue to do. Whereas the other two social media platforms, they tend to be more just generalized because obviously you can't basically target who you're going to show in terms of the industry. But whereas with LinkedIn, I can. So I just tend to do general. It's actually the same topics I'm talking about on LinkedIn and on the other social media platforms, but the posts are just slightly tailored towards whether it's a generic post or towards pharmacists, depending on where I'm actually going to be posting it.
I think that, like you say, it is about playing to your strengths, and you've not, like you say, you started doing that, and you're now getting traction with that several months in. So you've not given. It's not a case of I'm going to build my connections up. I'm starting posting on LinkedIn, specifically looking at your niche. But you've sort of, and it's great to see that you're now getting the results, but you've had to be persistent with that daily.
Yeah.
I can see you post every single down there. You are coming up every single down there. So you've not lost, you've got distractions of a pharmacy, your family, being a mortgage broker, being a business owner, and all the rest of it. You could have just gone, do you know what? I'll stop doing this now because I'm not getting any leads from LinkedIn on my niche. But you didn't give in. You've not given in on that. You've been persistent with that, and now you're reaping the benefits of it, which is what everyone, Dan talks about, Ash talks about, Chris talks about. I don't like. It's about having that, keeping that consistency going with it, and you're testament to that, Usman. And now you're reaping the benefits of that, and you're talking to like-minded people. There's that instant connection with your clients. If you're getting a client from LinkedIn from that feed, there's that instant connection there because they're a pharmacist. So you've got some level playing ground to start off with when you're starting a conversation, which should make it easier.
Yeah, no, it definitely does because obviously I understand just generally what they've gone through at work during the day. So when I have a chat with them, I can actually sympathise or what they've actually, the pitfalls they've had that day because I guaranteed I'll have gone through them. Funny enough, so half the time I end up talking to them about pharmacy and giving them advice about pharmacy as well, because I tend to be older than most of them, sadly. So I tend to, obviously, with the experience I've got, I'll be like, oh, well, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And then it leads on to the conversation with the mortgages. A lot of the queries I'm getting are relatively newly qualified pharmacists who are looking for their first mortgage. So that's working out quite well for us. So essentially, it's first-time buyers within that niche that seem to be coming towards me.
I know, but the trust is there. If you then know you're helping them on their aspect of what they're doing day in, day out, well, they're not going to go anywhere else because you're building your authority on the pharmacist side, which will then naturally build your authority on the mortgage broker side. You're building that trust up. It's like, well, and then is there sort of like a pharmacist community? Do you get referrals from that? Is that something you can look like? Is there sort of like a groups and I don't know, like any other like businesses from that point of view?
There's quite a few groups on Facebook which I have looked at, but to be honest with you, it hasn't really been proactive, or I haven't been proactive in there just due to time constraints. But it's something I am looking to do. With regards to LinkedIn, that seems to be the main where I'm getting quite a lot of joy, but I've been doing it for a long time. And I think if I was to join any pharmacy groups on Facebook, for example, it's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take time, and I'm aware of that. There's a few podcasts, pharmacist podcasts, and I'm due to host a webinar with one of the podcast hosts. 2 weeks on a week on Sunday, which is hopefully going to be quite a big one. And this is aimed at, once again, first-time buyers and also promoting protection as well, because that's one thing I've realized coming into this industry. One, how important protection is, but secondly, how little people actually think of it. Everyone wants a mortgage, but no one actually wants to protect the asset that they're looking to get. Or protect, obviously, the financial debt that they're getting. So that's something that I'll be hoping to talk to quite a few people about a week on Sunday. And that's something I'm actually looking to do going forward as well. There's a few others that I've approached, just waiting on responses to see how we can go forward, if there is a way of going forward with them.
Well, I think like now you've been on this podcast, we can get you some clips and you can show your authority on there of how natural you are on a podcast. So hopefully that will help out.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully that'll be a benefit as well going forward.
So you've talked a little bit about there in terms of you're very much a structured individual, you're very much around planning, you've got sort of short-term plans and long-term plans as well. So you sort of clearly see that you're very business oriented in that kind of way. Where is this going? What's like the long-term plans for you and your business and this whole thing that you've sort of been brave enough to do?
My long-term plan is to be able to reduce the pharmacy to 1 day a week, I would say, or even 1 day every 2 weeks. Although I want to do this full time, I've worked hard to be a pharmacist. I've been in that industry a long time. It's not something I just want to give up like that, because it's a useful qualification to have for starters. So it's something I'd always want to keep a hand in, whether that's doing it 1 day a week, once every 2 weeks, or even 1 day a month. But my plan is to do this full time. So 4 to 5 days a week is what I want to do with this going forward. So I'm slowly just building up the clientele, and obviously trying to hit a certain number of clients a week to reach the targets I want. At the moment in time, I'm actually looking to replace the funds that I've lost from getting rid of the accountancy firm, because obviously that was bringing in an income stream on a monthly basis for me as well. So my first focus is replacing that on a regular basis. Once I've done that, the next step would be, right, how much more clients do I need to drop another day at the pharmacy, and then just work my way with that. If it gets to the point where I can drop 4 days or in total and work 1 day, I'd probably be quite happy with that. But if I think, actually, no, I can go further, or the business is actually, I think it will get to the point where it'll start to snowball. Right now, it's still early days, so it's a little bit slow at times. But I think it'll get to the point where it snowballs, that when I get to a certain point, I'll start getting a lot of clients coming through, whether through referrals, whether through social media. I haven't got any introducers, such as estate agents. I haven't gone down that route. But one of the reasons I didn't go down that route is purely because I haven't got the time, like the full time, to dedicate to them.
Yeah.
I appreciate estate agents. They're going to want an answer. They're going to want a mortgage decision in principle within 24 hours, sometimes probably even less. If I'm at the pharmacy, I'm not good at them. So I didn't go down that route purely because I wouldn't be able to offer the service that they would want. So that it would probably just be a bad relationship for both. But when I get to the point where I'm 4 days or even 5 days, I would probably approach introducers just to try and build up the business that way as well. And then it's just a case of, once I get to that point, assess what I want to do going forward. Do I want to take on, because I'm just a one-man band, quite happy being a one-man band, but then do I want to take on more stuff down the line? It's something I would actually have to review at that point. It's not anything I'm not against it, but I would have to review what's best for, first of all, me and then the business. Obviously the two do go hand in hand, but if it's a case of I'm comfortable doing everything on my own, I'm fine, I'll just leave it as it is. But if I think, actually, no, I want to expand it and grow it, then I'll need to review it at that point. But the first point for me right now is replacing the accountancy income, and then slowly reduce my days at the pharmacy where I can support myself and my family, and then take it from there.
I thought you was going to say watching Newcastle United in the Champions League final as well. I thought I was going to get
Yeah,
in there.
hopefully one day. Obviously, we watched the game last night. It was a bit nervy at times, let's be honest, but they defended well. That's the main thing.
But I think from me listening to you there talking about the long-term plan, it's very level-headed, it's very grounded, it's very solid. It's not, you're not sort of getting run over like like the thing with the introducers. You're right. You don't want to be on the back foot with that, which you would be if they're providing you with leads, and then you're not getting them to call them in the right time, the manner, and things like that. It's not good for the client. It's not good for you. Not good for the estate agent. So what I'm getting from this, Usman, is that you're very sort of level-headed, grounded individual that does things on a solid foundations, which is important to build a successful business. Because, like you say, you're not going to be sort of just flying, not the right probably phrase, but flying by the seat of your pants at certain aspects. It's about doing things the right way that are the right for you. Like you said, that the first thing you said there was things that are right for you and things that are right for your business. And that's clearly that's important to you, is that things that are right for you. And if they are right for you, they'll be right for your business, and your business will flourish and grow, and you build it and scale it to what you want it to look like, whatever that looks like for you. So excellent. Usman, thank you. Like, you trusted me on your first podcast with no agenda, very conversational, and hopefully it wasn't too painful for you in terms of it. I've absolutely loved talking to you onto the podcast. Been great to finally get you onto podcast, and just really, it's proved that proved that I'm right of why I wanted to get in the podcast, because it's just been really good to talk to you about you and getting you why you got into the industry, and where you're at and what the future looks like as well. So I really appreciate your time and trusting me with that, and
Yeah,
being
no
very
problem.
open and honest, and sharing your experiences, and hopefully it's not been too painful for you.
No problem at all. I was nervous, I'm not going to lie, but hopefully I haven't come across too badly on it.
Come across perfectly, don't worry. No, absolutely good. So, Usman, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're such a busy person with all the jobs going on, all the roles that you have. So I appreciate you taking sort of nearly an hour of your time out just to come and talk on the podcast. And hopefully, and I'm sure the listeners and the subscribers will have got a lot out of it in terms of from you and your journey so far. And people will pay interest to what the future looks like for you and your business. So thank you so much.
No problem. Cheers, Craig. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. Hopefully you got something out of the podcast this week and the interview with Usman. I know I certainly did, and it was a great experience interviewing Usman, listening to his story, and really understanding what's important to him and his structure and his routine, so that he can juggle the various jobs and roles that he's got, but also as well looking at long term in terms of what he wanted to do. A very grounded individual who's building a business on solid foundation. So hopefully you got something out of that. Thank you for listening. If you've got any comments, feedback, anything about the podcast, then please add them to whichever platform you listen to the podcast. And as always, thank you for liking it, sharing it, subscribing to the podcast. If you do get something out of it, then please rate us on iTunes or whichever platform you listen to. It does help, because the podcast, we do the podcast to help as many mortgage brokers as we can, as many self-employed mortgage brokers as we can in the industry, and business owners as well. So please rate it, and that will help us even more. And as always, make sure you run your own race.